honor of introducing our keynote speaker. I'm going to start by reading her bio that's in here, and then I'll speak a little more personally about how I know her. So our keynote speaker's name is Morgan McCall. Morgan McCall is a dancer and former dance instructor from Lake Odessa, Michigan. She is currently a freshman at the University of Michigan's College of Literature, Science, and Arts, so shout out to her for being in enemy territory. As a survivor of child sexual abuse, she is a passionate advocate for youth protection programs and mandated reportership legislation reform, and she hopes to pursue a law degree in order to enforce meaningful policy. Morgan wholeheartedly believes in a holistic pursuit of justice, combining grassroots activism and law to create safer communities, and is honored to share her message with Take Back the Night at Michigan State University. So the first time I met Morgan was on a blustery Michigan winter day in December of 2017. A couple of my peers who are on the planning committee for Take Back the Night, Hannah and Anna, and myself organized a protest at the Board of Trustees meeting because we were really frustrated with the way our university was handling the Larry Nassar case. And that was when I first heard Morgan speak. I was so taken aback that this short but super fierce woman was speaking her mind, she was so eloquent and thoughtful about the things she was saying. And I met her afterwards and just was in awe of her. And she was one of the survivors who spoke during the victim impact statements that obviously were heard around this community, around the state, around the world. And we're just thrilled to have such a strong-spoken, intelligent, and amazing advocate for herself and for so many others here. So without any further ado, Morgan McCall.
Short. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan McCall. I stand before you, 18 years old, a first-year student at the University of Michigan, but I also stand before you as a little girl, the one who at only 12 years old was sexually abused by Larry Nassar on this very campus. I'm here on ground zero of mine and hundreds of other women's, if not thousands of other women's, sexual assaults to share my story with you. When I was 2 years old, I witnessed a production of Alice in Wonderland. It was full of dazzling dance numbers which captured my tiny heart, and I knew right then and there I wanted to be a ballerina when I grew up. And so that's what I did. I spent my childhood practicing fouette turns and tour jetés. My summers I spent studying for Cicchetti ballet exams, and every moment in between dreaming up choreography for a performance of my own. Dance was my art, but more importantly, it was my sport. But it is also the vehicle which drove my unassuming body into the MSU Sports Medicine Clinic on the corner of Hagedorn and Hannah. When I was 12, I had a doctor who was a monster. Walking into that office with a limp that ached with each step, my very own souvenir from a ballet class gone wrong, I was full of hope. Hope that I'd not only return to my peak athletic performance, but that I'd feel whole again. Being seriously injured for the first time tore from me one of my greatest passions, my emotional safe haven and the community of dancers that came along with it. It tore a part of me away, and damn was I desperate for some semblance of relief. I wanted to feel me again. Walking into that office with a limp like a target on my tiny back changed my life. It's one of those freeze frame stills when I look back, a true hand of the gods moment. I was being led by a friendly nurse with a peppery mustache through halls lined with fantastical pictures, Olympic memorabilia, world-class dancers, and familiar faces. The gates of hell bloomed open with checkpoints for vital signs and casual conversation. 80 pounds and 4 feet, 11 inches. I was 12 and I was limping blindly towards the 9th ring. The office was beige and the doctor was a monster. snarling behind a genial facade. The appointment was a red blur of pressure points and stinging fingers, then a pain so unfamiliar I could do nothing but forget. In my tortured memory, that pain dulled to beige, the same beige as the walls which suffocated from the weight of the athletic iconography. Everyone watched me turn beige that day. Carrie Strug, J.C. Phelps, Dominique Moceanu, Shannon Miller, Dominique Dawes, Amy Chow, and Amy Borden smiled in triumph as I squirmed in agony and utter confusion. The next 5 years were beige. And then all of a sudden it's gray. It's a brisk, foggy morning spent driving into the sunrise, the stone Goliath in the distance trimmed with snow. I'm standing in line with familiar faces, filing one by one through metal detectors, headed to the hearth of beige and sneering cameras. I'm not awake. The walls are empty, and I'm greeted by a sea of grimacing faces, detectives and strangers and little girls, some of them with the same cherub faces I had when I lay on that exam table. There are hugs and back rubs, but I feel like a marionette doll pulling my own strings just to keep from collapsing entirely. No dose of peppermint oil can stop that icy churning in my stomach. There are long, silent moments spent ducking in the bathroom with a 15-year-old girl who cannot stop twirling her long brown hair. We wring our hands and comfort each other, sisters though total strangers. I ask myself, what's it like to be so young and to see so much? Women and children are lined up like merchandise on convertible church pews, clutching clammy hands and exchanging knowing looks. I'm swallowed up by the beige walls, empty. The altar is empty too, and then it's not. An orange jumpsuit, a black robe. I'm still not awake. These are the saddest days of my life, where tragedy follows tragedy described in meticulous, sinister detail, and pain mutes out pain, mutes out pain. I sat in rigid stillness for hours like a rubber band about to snap, growing numb to the parade of tragedy outstretched. I felt camera lenses pointing at me, burning nameless stares into my face. 3 days turned into 4, sleepless nights multiplied accordingly, and the days were spent reliving nightmares that I loathe to recount. 20 broken hearts, each and every day, were sandwiched between me and my moment of reckoning. My fractured mind could not decide what to say. After all, what is there to say when you're following 80 testimonies which echo your own? I don't know how it happened, but after seemingly endless waiting, my time had come. Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon brought my arrival to the end of the conveyor belt of tragedy, and there was nowhere I could hide. A full courtroom, a slew of journalists stuffed into a jury box, and one maiden of justice were about to witness my soliloquy, years in the making. It was as though all of the air had been choked out of the room. In the vacuum, my body rolled and quaked. I choked on the emptiness which I was called upon to fill, beige walls, orange jumpsuit, clutching the papers which held my darkest secrets, the ones with the words that would never be quite right. I made my way to the podium, like a fawn too earnest to walk properly. Deep breaths, beige walls. It took me years to realize that what happened in that office was not medical, was not appropriate, and was not my fault. When I was just 15 years old, coincidentally the same year my appointments in the eye building ceased, I wanted the inexplicable pain I felt to end. I endured the darkest mental torment for years just to stay alive. 15 and completely, utterly lost, grieving a childhood I didn't know I had been robbed of. My saving grace, my only saving grace, was the army of survivors I was privileged to encounter. An army of incredible women from all walks of life, some of them mothers, some of them athletes, some of them halfway around the world. Those beige walls, and with them at my side, trading tissues and our surest tricks for overcoming the nauseating post-traumatic flashbacks, I witnessed my tormentor sent to prison for the rest of his life. Together, we managed to share our truths, many of us with our names and faces attached for the world to see. After I gave my impact statement, I truly felt a wave of relief wash over me that I had been seeking for years. The reality for the majority of men and women who are assaulted, however, is completely different. In the spectacle of cameras, in the sheer, almost fantastical scale of the Nassar scandal, it's easy to forget that. The agony that I felt leading up to those weeks pales in comparison to what many victims face in the aftermath of their assaults. To be hyperventilating in court, to see your abuser in court at all, is a privilege that so many are denied. And this isn't just a gymnastics problem or a Hollywood problem. It's boardrooms, it's family friends' houses, and it's universities like our own. And so I'm here. This problem, this tragedy is here, and I wholeheartedly believe the solution is here too. So despite what the leaders of this university want, I will not be quiet anymore. 10 days, 256 impact statements, 175 years. I will not be quiet anymore. 1 in 4 female undergrads will be sexually assaulted on this campus. 72% of them will not report their assault on this campus because they fear the consequences or they do not feel they'll be heard. We will not be quiet anymore. In November of last year, December, just kidding, at merely 17 years old, I addressed the Board of Trustees and I reminded them that they have a responsibility to protect women on their campus. I reminded them that anything short of this is reprehensible cowardice. If they've done anything more than that in just these past 6 months, I'll let you be the judge. We will not be quiet anymore. The MASU cited risks to university insurance premiums and governmental credit ratings when they opposed legislation drafted by Nassar survivors to protect other survivors in the state. The United Educators Insurance Company, of whom MSU is a client, advocated against creating a, quote, victim-centric environment on this campus. We will not be quiet anymore. In January of this year, Michigan State University spent $500,000 to monitor and compile survivors' social media activity. So since they're listening, we will not be quiet anymore. How many little girls and little boys and men and women could have been spared of this lifelong battle if someone at the university had just listened? We will not be quiet anymore. 1997, 1998, 1999, 2000, 2004, 2014, every 98 seconds, another man or woman is victimized in this country, so we will not be quiet anymore. There is a choice to be made in these kinds of dire circumstances. Stand with survivors or stand against them. When faced with loss of community, loss of income, or loss of security for reporting sexual abuse or assault, it's imperative that bystanders do the right thing. When faced with the incomprehensible tragedy that is the burglary of a child's innocence, it's imperative that our community does the right thing. And so we demand better together. This necessary change starts with us, and it starts today. In January, I asked Judge Aquilina to impose a sentence against Nassar which would send an unmistakable message to those who perpetrate heinous crimes against children, whether they molest and maim or look the other way to protect their green and white. In the months to come, I will ask William Strample's judge the same thing. Because these men aren't mere predators on islands, as is convenient for institutions to have us think. These predators are bred, and they are sheltered by the framework which grants them access to these young people. They are mere symptoms of a sickness which plagues the very core of Michigan State University and institutions around this country, a perverse, deliberate inaction. Survivors, don't give up. This is a new chapter we turn, one of hope and justice, and persistent love despite unthinkable pain. I've suffered these ails alongside you. Far away, but sisters in the evil we faced. You have my heart and my support, but more importantly, you have your voice. By standing strong in a world which does not deserve you, you've proven your strength each and every day. Allies, don't give up. Do this work for the survivors you know, the survivors who have not spoken or cannot speak up, and the generations of silent survivors who are no longer with us. Change is coming. We are loud, and we do not tolerate this treatment of human beings. There is so much torment behind the scenes. Whatever grief you see, there is exponentially more that lies behind the surface. A lot of that has to do with how survivors are treated after they disclose. After they utter those all too painful, all too familiar words, "Me too." I'm just an 18-year-old girl. I've got the typical preoccupations with love and school and the mystery of what lies beyond graduation. But the moment that I first spoke about my assault tore my life apart. See, the unconventional aspect about being involved in the Nassar case, besides being privileged to have a compassionate experience with the criminal justice system, is that every subsequent reaction or action is broadcast for the world to see, for me to see. I woke up the day after delivering my most vulnerable address face to face with a man who manipulated my prepubescent self for his own sexual gratification, to a slew of YouTube comments stating things along the lines of, "I thought Larry Nassar had good taste until now. And the only struggle that thing survived was its mom cutting its hair." These comments crushed me, sleep deprived and emotionally battered after hearing story after story after story, forcing me to relive my own trauma. I also woke up to comments from MSU Board of Trustees Vice Chair Joel Ferguson diminishing the raw, real pain I felt as just this Nassar thing, and something that paled in comparison to the renovation of the Breslin Center. Then I woke up to the details of the severance package for Luanna Simon, where she was showered with perks and athletic privilege and hundreds of thousands of dollars and not even a shred of institutional shame for sponsoring hundreds, if not thousands, of child molestations for years. Then I woke up to the news that William Strample, Nassar's former boss, was himself a vile sexual deviant who had a personnel file littered with harassment and misconduct allegations stretching decades. I woke up to the news that these allegations were reviewed by former Provost Kim Wilcox in 2010, and Strample was granted tenure. He was given a full endorsement by a Michigan State University that was fully aware of his behavior perpetrated against their own students. Then I woke up to the news that Michigan State had been monitoring my personal social media account activity for $200 to $600 per hour. I found this out because I was explicitly named in the documents released to media 4 separate times. I wake up every day and I see my assault used as leverage against insurance companies and donors, and endless eruptions of excuses and lies from people decades my senior. I wake up every damn day re-victimized when I watch the way this administration, in the words of the House Committee, defiantly and wrongfully maintain that it did not egregiously mishandle this case. And today I woke up and I reclaimed that narrative. Thank you to the Take Back the Night Committee, who have been some of my closest allies throughout this process, for inviting me here today. And a huge, enormous thank you to the Spartan community who has taken action in the aftermath of the Larry Nassar case. We still very much need you. Time is up. Our time is now. And we will not be quiet anymore. Thank you.